Omagyanatimirandhasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. By exhibiting His potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping Himself within as the Super Soul and without as time. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Here it is stated that within the heart, the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides as the Super Soul. This situation is also explained in Bhagavad-gita. The Super Soul rests beside the individual soul and acts as a witness. This is also confirmed elsewhere in the Vedic literature. Two birds are sitting on the same tree of the body. One is witnessing and the other is eating the fruits of the tree. This Purusha or Paramatma, who resides within the body of the individual soul, is described in Bhagavad-gita as the Upadrashta, witness, and the Anumanta, sanctioning authority. The conditioned soul engages in the happiness and distress of the particular body given him by the arrangements of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the Supreme Living Being, or the Paramatma, is different from the conditioned soul. He is described in Bhagavad-gita as Maheshvara, or the Supreme Lord. He is Paramatma, not Jivatma. Paramatma means the Super Soul who is sitting by the side of the conditioned soul, just to sanction his activities. The conditioned soul comes to this material world in order to lord it over material nature. Since one cannot do anything without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, he lives with the Jiva soul as witness and sanction giver. He is also Bhokta. He gives maintenance and sustenance to the conditioned soul. Since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is very affectionate to the living entities. Unfortunately, when the living entity is bewildered or illusioned by the external energy, he becomes forgetful of his eternal relationship with the Lord. But as soon as he becomes aware of his constitutional position, he is liberated. The minute independence of the conditioned soul is exhibited by his marginal position. If he likes, he can forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead and come into the material existence with a false ego to lord it over material nature. But if he likes, he can turn his face to the service of the Lord. The individual living entity is given that independence. His conditional life is ended and his life becomes successful as soon as he turns his face to the Lord. But by misusing his independence, he enters into material existence. Yet the Lord is so kind that as Super Soul, he always remains with the conditioned soul. The concern of the Lord is neither to enjoy nor to suffer from the material body. He remains with the Jiva simply as sanction giver and witness, so that the living entity can receive the results of his activities, good or bad. Outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as the time factor. According to the Sankhya system of philosophy, there are 25 elements. The 25 elements already described plus the time factor make 25. According to some learned philosophers, the Super Soul is included to make a total of 26 elements. This chapter is titled The Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. Principles meaning here the elements, that which makes up material nature. So, up to this point, on hearing this, we may think the description of the different elements, how they interact, the modes of nature, you may think, well, what's this got to do with Krishna? This is Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam means that which is in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's a description of material nature, so we may be thinking, what's this got to do with Krishna? And the answer has been introduced in the verse previous to this, and is continued in this verse, that it's all Krishna's energy. Bhagavan Atmamaya. Bhagavan Atmamayaya. He enters into the material energy. It is his energy. So, not seeing Krishna in the material energy is the cause of our incarceration in the material energy. Because we don't see Krishna. We may think, what's the material energy got to do with Krishna? And the answer is everything. It's not separate from Krishna. In one sense. Bhina prakriti rashtadha. Krishna says that this energy is separated from me. This bhumirapo nalo vayu, etc. Ityadi. But that separation is only there because of the conditioned soul's desire to be separate. Otherwise, nothing is separate from Krishna. That's why the temple is Vaikuntha. The deity is Krishna. Because here in this temple, although it's bricks and marble, there are bricks underneath all this. Underneath the marble, bricks. We saw it in construction. 1970s. So, bricks, cement and marble, there are so many buildings in Bombay made of bricks and cement, and quite a lot with marble also, it being a rich city. So how can we say that this is spiritual? This temple is completely spiritual because it's directly meant for the service of Krishna. Whereas everything else in Bombay is taken by the conditioned souls for their enjoyment. So in that sense it may be considered separate. Although Starvajangam deke na deke tar murti sarvatra hoy tar ishta deva spurti. Those who are pure devotees, they see everything, moving and non-moving, they say Krishna. Everywhere they see Krishna. Here is Krishna. But that vision is different vision, just like Prabhupada says in this purport, about those who turn their face away from the Lord and those who turn their face towards the Lord. Bahimukh and Unmukh, these are the Sanskrit words. Turning our face away from Krishna, we don't see Krishna anywhere, even though He's everywhere. And turning our face toward Krishna, we see Krishna. So Bhagavatam is to help us see Krishna. We all have, the jiva has the ability to see Krishna. People ask, have you seen God? So what is the answer? Yes, you've seen, I've seen. But we may not recognize. It's not just a matter of seeing. We have to recognize also. Just like we may say to someone, have you seen atoms? All the forms we're seeing, it's only atoms. But have we seen? You won't directly see, but we have to be trained to see that apart from the gross forms at the atomic level, there are atoms. So a scientist who's all the time thinking about atoms, who's working with atoms, he sees atoms everywhere, whereas other people don't see. Because he's aware of that. He's atom conscious. Or a biologist is cell conscious. So the biologist, he sees cells. This is a combination of cells. We see according to the vision that we imbibe. When a psychologist meets a person, he starts to evaluate his personality in terms of the particular school of psychology he's been trained in. It's not an exact science. There are different schools of psychology and they have different theories. So there's also Vedic psychology. There's a book about to be printed about that by Sahotra Maharaj. Someone who's very much concerned with astrology, when he sees someone, he'll start immediately thinking, oh, this one is this. Actually, I don't know much about it. Libra or Capricorn or what are in the Indian system, what is that? There's Karkata Lagna and all this different kind of stuff. So he'll say to you, are you a lion or are you a scorpion or something like that? They'll start to try to work it out and say, oh yes, you're like this because of this. You were born on this date, in this month. Or someone trained in Ayurveda will see, getting angry. That's because you've got too much pitta. So it's all true, but it's not the complete picture. The complete picture is given that Purusha Prakritisto hi bhunkte Prakritijan guna karanam guna sangasya sadasadyoni janmasu. That the Purusha, here in this Bhagavad-gita verse that I just quoted, Purusha means the Jiva. He's in Prakriti, although he doesn't belong. Prakriti here means material nature. And therefore he's enjoying, bhunkte, enjoying or suffering the results of interaction with the three modes of material nature. And because of that he attains so-called good or not very good conditions in material life. Although it's actually none of it's any good, but according to his perception, according to the perception of the conditioned soul, to be born in a rich Janma Ishvarya Shuta Shri, to have these material opulences is a good birth. And to be born in low family or Nicha Jati, or not to be well educated, to be ugly, dark-skinned. In India that's that when people look at each other, when they meet, one of the first things in India they say, what is the color of the skin? And if you have white skin, if you're from the West, then Indian people say, oh, very important person. Fascination with the color of the skin. It's good for preaching for Westerners in India, but it's got nothing to do with who the jiva is. So, sada sadyoni janmasu, we take birth in different situations, and this is the complete picture. We cannot get a complete understanding of the position of the jiva in material nature by astrology, psychology, medicine, numerology, or any other such system, but by the Sankhya philosophy of Kapila Dev, which here the 26th element is given, the super soul, who's being described here, Antah Purusha Rupena Bhagavan. The Supreme Lord is within the heart of every living being as the Paramatma. Without understanding this, whatever we understand about material nature must be incomplete. Even the Sankhya philosophy of Nirishvara Kapila, the atheist Kapila, he gets everything, he analyzes the material nature, and more or less in the same way, he comes up with all the same elements and same divisions, but he misses the most important thing, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Srimad Bhagavatam gives knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how we can begin to see Him from our blind position. Practically we are blind. We're seeing, but pashan api na pashyati. Seeing but not seeing properly. If there's one who is not trained cannot see properly. Just like some scientific experiment may be there. And one who's trained knows what's going on. Someone who's not trained, they'll just see something's going on, but they don't have any idea. But those who are trained, Pasyanti Jnana Chakshusha, those who are trained in knowledge, they can understand what's going on. Otherwise, we may come to so many wrong conclusions about anything. If you see, now in India they got this machine for breaking buildings. It's like a huge, something like an automobile. You drive it up and then it swings. Big weight swings and it breaks the building. So if you see that, did I say in India? I saw it in Dubai. Maybe it didn't come to India yet. No, I think in India also they have that. So everything's coming. You don't have to go to America. All the modern improvements are coming here. You can stay in India. So if you see that, you may someone who doesn't understand, they may think, why are they breaking the building? But someone who knows, they're breaking it to build another building. That's usually what they build it. That's what they do it for. So if one just sees superficially, we cannot understand. Education is required. We speak of Aborigines, Adivasis. They're considered less civilized because they have less knowledge. Those who have more knowledge, they are considered to be advanced. There was a theory, I suppose it must have been, earlier 20th century, that we should have education for everyone. This is just now coming in India. You'll see on the back of the buses, they write. In Bangladesh also. Send your children to school. The idea, everyone should get education. So the idea was there, well, if everyone is educated, then everyone will be very civilized, and there'll be no more crime, and everyone will be very advanced and sophisticated, and everyone will be a gentleman. But actually that's true. If they're educated in Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, knowledge of Krishna. But the education that man has descended from monkeys, this education makes men into monkeys. And the education that we are all servants of Krishna makes us godly. How do we perceive ourselves? We perceive that we are simply products of material energy, and there's no God in control. Asatyam apratishthante jagadahur anishvaram. There's no God in control. So what does it matter? Aparaspara sambhutam kim anyat kama haitukam. What else is there but lust? So lust, fulfillment of desire, becomes the raison d'etre, or the reason for existence of the whole society. That the whole society is simply based on sense enjoyment. But then we can't understand any higher truth. Then education is not for bringing us to a higher level, but simply teaching us how to act as sophisticated animals. They think that we're very advanced because we have big buildings and we have computers and space rockets and nuclear and all kinds of different bombs. But that is not advancement of civilization. That is, we can say that it's the advancement of being a small dog, the advancement of a big dog over a small dog. The big dog is more advanced than the small dog because he's more expert in ahara nidra bhaya maitun, eating, sleeping, Well, especially he has more opportunities for eating. He can chase away the small dog if there's any food. Sex, if there's any bitch in heat. You know what that means? It means female kuti who's ready for impregnation. Then all the dogs surround. So the big one gets, and fighting the bigger dog is more expert. So the modern society has advanced in ahara nidra bhaya maithun. But actual education to understand this subtle principle of reality, that is particularly given in Srimad Bhagavatam. And any education worthy of the name must teach us the higher principles. But then again, without this knowledge of Bhagavan, whatever apparently higher principles may be there, it doesn't actually elevate the human being. Just like in the Western countries, they're very much enamored by Shakespeare, especially English language. Shakespeare is the hero. And there are so many others. They've written dramas, and in this fiction they analyze human nature. They're very expert in analyzing human nature, but they have no solution to the problems of life, and they don't even clearly understand what the problems of life are. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives exact knowledge of reality. Here is the description of Bhagavan, who is the active principle. Here we have the fundamental principles of material nature. But what is it that makes everything go on? How is it going? It's because of Bhagavan. Bhagavan has entered within everything, and outside as the time factor. So this is beginning to see Bhagavan. How we can begin to see Bhagavan. If we immediately from our position, Prakriti stuck in material nature, if we discuss Bhagavan's intimate leelas, they cannot be understood. Because we will either think that this is imaginary. If we hear Nrsimha Leela, Brahma Vimohana Leela, all these leelas, we'll think it's imaginary because we presume that everything that we see in material nature, that is the limit of reality. So if we hear of Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion, or Krishna showing the universal form within his mouth, we consider either that is imaginary, or we consider that it's Nrsimhadev appeared. Nrsimhadev is a wonderful transformation of the material energy. We will not understand his spiritual nature. So the beginning of understanding of Bhagavan is understanding him as the Upadrashtanumanta cha Bharata Bhokta Maheshwaraha. This Prabhupada is quoting in this purport, bit by bit. He quotes these words, Upadrashta, Anumanta, Maheshwara, Bhokta. He uses these words from the 13th chapter of Gita. How the Supreme Lord within everyone's heart is seeing everything. He is the witness. And Anumanta, He is the sanction giver. Now often people ask, well, if God is there, then how can He allow bomb blasts in Bombay? How can He allow? If God is good, so why does He allow these things to happen? I told this a few times in The Week magazine. There was an interview, they were asking different people, does God exist or not? They thought that makes one article on does God exist, as if The Week magazine has any qualification to discuss this at all. So they just asked different people, what do you think? And Ram Jetmalani, how do you pronounce it? They asked him, and his opinion was, well, I used to believe in God, but when I went to Kutch just after the earthquake and saw so many children trapped underneath there were schools collapsed in that earthquake with the children inside and they were screaming, and then I thought, how can there be God? How can He allow this to happen? Or they think, how can someone like Hitler or Stalin, how can God allow this? But He is not exactly, He's not orchestrating, or He's not writing the drama, you can say. The jivas are writing their own life story. You get what you deserve, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. When the news came to him, that Chota Haridas, he rejected. You don't come. And again they were asking, no, he cannot come. And eventually they came with the news that Haridas went to Prayag and drowned himself. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, instead of saying, you might think, oh, I'm very sorry. He said, Swakarma phala bhukpuman. Everyone gets what they deserve. That was his reaction. What is that? Kusum api komal. And then Pashan api kotor. Soft as a rose and hard as a rock. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So everyone gets what they deserve. Krishna gives a little independence to the jivas because they wish to be separate from Him. They wish to identify themselves with the Bhina Prakriti. So Krishna, He gives permission. Alright, you do. But there are rules also. That book is there, published in Hindi. Prakriti ke niyam. Laws of nature, it's called in English. Laws of nature. Very heavy book. People don't like. They want a book, or they like a picture, whether it's Krishna or Jesus or Buddha, whatever religion they may be in. He's very gentle and smiling and blessing them. That's all. You enjoy life with my blessing. But the blessing is there in another way also. The blessing also comes in the form of tsunami, bomb blasts, and apart from that, just dying in your sleep. In Hyderabad, I was just there, there's a virus going around called, what's it? Chikungunya, something like that. Everyone's getting it. It's sick like anything. And you don't die. No one dies of it. You just suffer, that's all. And then you become healthy, and then you do more sinful activities, and you set yourself up for more suffering. So, this is inevitable in material life. This is Bhagavan's mercy. Who can see this as His mercy? They think that it is His mercy to enjoy material life. He gives us sanction to enjoy material life. But those who are more advanced see that His mercy comes in the form of punishment, so that we can understand that material life is not enjoyable at all. So the beginning of understanding Bhagavan, Anuman, Upadrashta, Anumanta. To understand, He's seeing everything and He sanctions everything. And materialistic people who begin to see God, people who say, I believe in God, they generally presume that God, they don't want to define Him very clearly. They always have a vague idea. And they presume that God is as you like to define Him. So they generally think of Him as Upadrashtanumanta. He sees everything and He sanctions everything, and I'm His devotee, or I believe in God, I go to church, I go to the temple, I do my namaz, and therefore He should sanction my sense enjoyment. But Bhagavatam takes us from the understanding of the Supreme Lord as Paramatma, inside as Paramatma and outside as the time principle, non-different. That these are the manifestations of the Supreme Lord within the material world. But parastasvatu bhava vyakto vyaktat sanatana. Beyond this material world, there is the spiritual world where Paramatma, He is present not as internal upadrashtanumanta, but He's present as Krishna, Govinda, or in His Narayan forms, or different various forms of the Lord. Direct relationship with Him. So that can be appreciated by devotees. The devotee, when we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, then instead of considering the Supreme Lord as some kind of distant agent who sanctions and sanctifies our sense enjoyment, but rather a different vision, that this material nature which we have wrongly understood to be the place of our enjoyment is not at all. It's a place of punishment. But that punishment will cease, and Vishvam Purna Sukhayate, we will find the whole cosmos to be full of happiness when we see that everything here is to be used for the service of Krishna. So this vision is being given by Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalo nashta drishamesha puranarko dhanoditaha. The vision of which in Kali Yuga especially is most perverted, so perverted that what goes on in the name of religion is, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, what goes on in the churches in the name of religion is in many cases far more perverted than even persons who don't call themselves religionists, far more perverted than what they would indulge in. So Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for giving knowledge of Krishna. So where is Krishna in material energy? He is everywhere in material energy. Our not seeing Him is our disease. And Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the antidote to the disease which is at the root of our material existence, which is forgetfulness of Krishna. So here is the description of material nature. It may not seem very interesting, and actually it isn't very interesting compared to Krishna's beautiful pastimes in Vrindavan, or anywhere else for that matter. It's not relishable in the same way, but it is required that we understand this, so that we can understand that this material nature, it seems to us that we have a relationship with it, but actually we don't. So Sankhya means to see. This is like this. This is Bhumi, Apo, Nalo, Vayo, Kangmano, this. But then beyond that, Aparayamitastvanyam, beyond the material nature, there is the spirit soul. And beyond and above that, there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to take our attention away from Maparani towards Radharani. Maparani is the expansion. It's a word Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used. This for Maya. Mapiyate anaya iti Maya. One definition of Maya is to calculate everything within the material energy. Calculate and calibrate for my sense enjoyment. So too, this means to come under the spell of the enchantress. That's another term he used. We are enchanted by Maya, by which we are calculating how to make everything suitable for our sense enjoyment. But instead of worshipping Maparani, We are meant for worshipping Radharani. The Srimad Bhagavatam takes us on this long journey from Devi Dham to Vrindavan Dham. It's a long journey, but by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that can be traversed instantly. They're making space rockets, they're calculating how much time it will take to go to Mars. We have much further to go than Mars. We have to go where the yogis cannot go, even they're traveling at the speed of mind. Pantastu koti shatavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manaso muni pungavanam. The greatest munis. Muni pungavanam sopyasta yatpi. How does that go? Sopyasta yat parvata sinya vinchintya tatve govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. They traveling at the speed of mind, the best of munis still cannot reach the lotus feet of Govinda because he is avichintya tattva. They can't reach him because they're traveling at the speed of mind, but the mind cannot reach him. He is avichintya tattva. He is the principle which is not conceivable by the mind. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the knowledge by which we can conceive that which in the covered condition, material condition, calculating condition, we cannot conceive. Hare Krishna. So let us read Srimad Bhagavatam. Who's reading Srimad Bhagavatam? You're all reading Srimad Bhagavatam? Daily, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. We should daily read Srimad Bhagavatam. Become purified by this knowledge of Krishna. Otherwise, we're simply spoiling our lives. Any comment or question? Yeah, please give the mic. Ayo harati vai pungsam udyan astam chayanaso tasyarte yakshano nita uttama shloka vartaya. If we don't engage in discussion of uttama shloka, Krishna, then every rising and setting of the sun is simply spoiling our lives, taking it away. So let us discuss Krishna. Here in this section, it's discussing Krishna through material nature. Prabhupada discussed these verses here, right. Where would that be actually? It would have been over there somewhere. The old temple? Was it that side? The old shed? That side? I seem to remember it was this side. Anyway, I have a poor memory. I only came here for one day before the construction. I came one day and they sent me out the next day. Traveling in Maharashtra. We're waiting for the mic. Prabhupada discussed these verses, and out of that came the book Teachings of Lord Kapila. Well, you can try. You say and I'll repeat it in the mic.
I just wanted to thank you for bringing us to the point of understanding
our journey to Vrindavan. I'm being thankful for reminding us that we're on a journey to Vrindavan.
And the importance of understanding the greatness of Krishna in order to appreciate those intimate pastimes.
The importance of understanding the greatness of Krishna in order to understand those intimate pastimes. Yeah, that's part of the wonder of Krishna's Leela, isn't it? That time to time, even the devotees in Vrindavan, the time to time they start to think, well, looks like Krishna's God. Mother Yashoda will look in Krishna's mouth and where's the mud? And she sees all the mud in the universe. That's a lot of mud. Krishna's been eating dirt. I don't have any dirt in my mouth, and she had all the dirt in the universe in his mouth. Plus everything else in the universe. So residents of Vrindavan, they had a vision of Golok Dham, but then again they forgot and thought, well, Krishna's God. And then Krishna starts crying and Madhya Yashoda says, he's hungry, I better feed him. He's got all the milk in the universe in his mouth already, but she's thinking, I have to feed him milk. So from our vantage point, seeing this makes it even more sweet. How he's so great, but he's subordinate to the love of his devotees. Therefore, the nectar of devotion begins with this astonishing statement that even greater than Bhagavan is Bhakti. I remember I first read that. I just joined the temple. It's very difficult to understand. I'm still trying to understand it. I don't think I'll ever understand it. I don't think anyone ever understood it. But Rupa Goswami said so. So it must be true. Yeah, please.
Now I'm not a scientist, but I have heard some scientific laws of nature, like the law of gravity. The law
Yeah. You read popular science books.
and are there any devotees who are drawing the parallel directly from those laws of nature to the pastime of Krishna?
Are there any devotees who are engaged in drawing the parallel from the laws of nature to the moods of the gopis? Well, I hope all devotees are. Prabhupada set up the Bhaktivedanta Institute to demonstrate the Bhagavad principles through modern science. And some devotees are engaged in that. Not many, but Radharani, no. No, that will take them time. Let them understand the basics first. One time I was discussing with Rasaraj Prabhu here. We were discussing at that time there was a lot of public discussion within ISKCON of intimate leelas of Krishna, which actually none of our acharyas approved of that these intimate pastimes should be publicly discussed. Publicly means even among general devotees. So we were discussing that somewhat. And not that these things shouldn't be discussed, but among suitable persons. We don't find that any of our acharyas started speaking among a group of general devotees about how Krishna is chasing after the gopis or any such things. So anyway, I remember he said to me at that time that actually for me more important is discussion of quantum theory than of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, because that was his service, to demonstrate the Bhagavad principles. So in one sense, of course, it's not true, but in another sense it's true for him, because that's his service. That's why for devotees, just like Prabhupada wrote in one purport, that devotees shouldn't stay in Vrindavan or Navadvip or Jagannath Puri for their own sense gratification, just doing bhajan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said Mathura Vas, one should reside in Mathura. But Prabhupada wrote, no, better they should preach all over the world. So you may think, well, how is it better for my Krishna consciousness to go on some street in some city full of all the lower modes of material nature and distribute books about Krishna? But that's the order of Guru, and you'll find Vrindavan there. Whereas if we go to Vrindavan without the blessings of Guru, then we'll find Kanaka Kamini there. Prabhupada warned about that. That if you think you can just sit at Radha Kund, you'll simply think of women and money. He said you'll eat and sleep and think of women and money, if you're not qualified for that. So that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said these Babas, he said they're not at Radha Kund, they're at Narak Kund. Narak Kund means the pit of hell. So these things are to be understood. Vrindavan is ultimately appreciated by one's consciousness, and the purified consciousness that we cannot force our way in. We can't bring up an axe and say, now I'm going into Vrindavan. Anyone gets in my way, I'll cut. I'm Parashuram and I'll cut away. No, we can go in by humility and by blessings. We can approach. Now, Bhajan is there. But that bhajan, we'll get blessings for that bhajan by doing our service. That's why Prabhupada, he told more than one devotee actually, that when you preach, and when you're 50, you go and live in Vrindavan. He told Burijan Prabhu this. He said, but if you don't, Yamuna Devi also said, but if you don't teach others what you have learned, then even if you go and sit in Vrindavan, you'll simply envy others. So we see people who are superficially living in Vrindavan, at this particular moment in ISKCON's history, there's a struggle going on between ISKCON and a Goswami, so-called, of Vrindavan, who's probably born in Vrindavan, lived there all his life, in a Goswami family, who's materialistic, totally. So it's not necessarily that everyone, just that the body is in Vrindavan, but the mind can be in hell. And the body can be in the most materialistic city and always thinking of Krishna. By service we will become purified. Of course we have to hear about Krishna also. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that formula, that Jare Dekho Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amar Aggai Guru Hoya Tara Edesh Kobu Nabad Hibeto Maye Bishoy Taranga Punarapi Eitai Pabe Morashonga. That when the Brahmana wanted to go, I'm going with you, came to my village and now you're going, I'm going with you. I'm not staying here in Maya. I'm going to go with you. Then if I'm with you, I'll always be in Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Chaitanya means Krishna consciousness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, stay here and preach. On my order, you preach Krishna consciousness and you will meet me here again. You'll find me here.